Right now on Currents News, reaching out to help, Catholic Charities offering grief counseling to essential workers during the pandemic. Plus, addressing the nation, President Joe Biden is set to give his first primetime address on the heels of the COVID relief bill being passed. A new poll about Americans, faith, and politicians is out. We have the findings. And the nun who has the Pope's ear as one of the highest-ranking women in the Catholic Church. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. 1 year ago, the coronavirus was declared a pandemic. One of the hardest hit groups of people, essential workers, were forced to leave their homes when we were asked to stay inside. Now, Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens is reaching out to them by offering grief counseling. Jessica Easthope has more.
Okay.
The reassuring voice on the other end of the phone.
So a lot of anxiety.
Sometimes when the person calling is desperate for help,
And
that voice can save a life.
Some of them reporting suicidal ideation or at some point suicidal attempts.
I'm feeling anxious.
KARINA ALBARRACIN is a social worker and therapist for Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens. Over the last year, she's seen an increase in suicidal thoughts and attempts among her clients, even children.
I will say that remote learning has affected them, many of them, having to learn with time management. It's not the same as, when they were in school and you will say, well, it's time to learn.
KARINA has had a 30% increase in cases. Not only has her number of clients gone up, but the pandemic has driven up the frequency of the need itself.
I used to have clients that will be okay with bi-weekly sessions, but now it's like they have so much need that you need to see them weekly.
He lost his job.
KARINA's the person some clients see after reaching out to Catholic Charities' 24/7 Essential Workers Hotline.
Not having financial resources, not having food, stresses in their relationships, domestic violence, substance use increased significantly in our clients and in the community.
The hotline has had more than 700 essential workers call in. They've all put their health at risk for the sake of the community.
Some of your interventions.
CLAUDIA Salazar, the vice president of behavioral health at Catholic Charities, says as the COVID-19 pandemic is hopefully nearing its end, we're only on the brink of a mental health pandemic.
There's a lot of trauma that we're going to see. It's something that takes a very long time to develop and also a very long time to be able to deal with.
To find a job that
After getting to know her clients, KARINA says she's able to incorporate one of her strongest coping tools: faith.
I'm not going to be able to control that, but then I have my faith or my hope that things will get better.
a support system.
As essential workers themselves, the mental health professionals at Catholic Charities encourage people to use the hotline.
Thank you for calling.
Whether it's one time or every day,
How may I help you?
a voice will be there. In Jackson Heights, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
If you or someone you know needs some help in the pandemic, call Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens at 718-514-8031. That number again, 718-514-8031. You can also go to their website for more information. New York City will be getting much more than just a shot in the arm with the newly passed COVID relief package. Apart from the stimulus checks, Mayor Bill de Blasio says the city will receive roughly $6 billion in local aid, $6.5 billion in MTA assistance, and relief for restaurants, small businesses, and entertainment venues.
Things are moving. You can feel that things are opening up. People are ready. It's going to be a very exciting spring, even more exciting summer and fall in this city. So much is going to happen.
Speaking with the mayor Thursday, Senator Chuck Schumer announced a new vaccine supercharge effort that will supply more vaccines and implement vaccination sites at 100 community health centers throughout the state. Also in the news tonight, President Biden will address the nation for the first time since he took office. The primetime speech follows his signing of the $1.9 trillion relief package. Karen Kafa has a preview.
On the heels of his first major legislative victory.
Well, this historic legislation is about rebuilding the backbone of this country.
A nearly $2 trillion package designed to help millions of Americans get through the next phase of the COVID-19 pandemic. President Joe Biden will speak to the nation.
He plans to provide a clear outline of his approach, level with the American people about what is required of them, but also provide a sense of hope.
Since taking office, the president has often reflected upon the more than 500,000 U.S. lives lost to COVID-19, leaning into the role of consoler-in-chief.
Today we mark a truly grim, heartbreaking milestone.
1 year ago, on March 11, 2020, former President Donald Trump addressed the nation hours after the World Health Organization declared a global pandemic.
The virus will not have a chance against us. No nation is more prepared or more resilient than the United States.
It's a night many look back on as a turning point. Tonight, Biden will look forward and highlight the benefits of his newly passed, newly signed economic relief plan.
What I'm talking about tonight is the impact on the virus and how we're going to end this pandemic. And we're going to talk all the elements of the bill beginning on Friday, Saturday, and through the week.
Pushing back on Republican criticism that not all of it was necessary, not a single congressional Republican voted for the bill. In Washington, Karen Kafa, Currents News.
When it comes to making decisions, most Americans, especially Catholics, want President Biden and other politicians to rely on their faith. A new poll from St. Leo's University shows more than 65% of Catholic respondents want the president to let his faith guide him when deciding important issues. When all Americans, Catholics and non-Catholics, were polled, still more than half want Biden to be guided by his faith. Albany police are looking into groping allegations against Governor Andrew Cuomo. Police say Cuomo's office contacted him saying he may be involved in a crime. At this point, there's been no formal complaint and no charges have been filed against the governor. The incident allegedly involves a female aide and took place at the executive mansion. Cuomo has denied all allegations against him. At the Vatican, one nun is vital to the Holy Father's plans of increasing a woman's role in the church. The sister has already been part of a historic first and hopes to help other women within the church do the same. This is Sister Maria Luisa Berzosa. She's known as a trailblazing religious woman who participated in both the synod dedicated to young people and the one dedicated to the Amazon. She made headlines in May of 2019 when Pope Francis appointed her one of 3 women consultors to the Synod of Bishops.
During the Synod on Youth, the Pope modified the rules and used his authority to allow superiors general to vote, whether priests or not. That's when it no longer made any difference to the superiors general whether I was a woman or a man. And that led us to ask ourselves, why make this distinction?
The Spanish nun took her vows in 1965 and has dedicated her life to educating the poor and underprivileged in Spain, Argentina, and Italy. She's also a vocal advocate for the role of women in the church. Sister Berzosa says reviving the spirit of the Second Vatican Council is one of the main focuses of Pope Francis's pontificate.
I've been hurt by the church, but I never wanted to leave. I always wanted to stay. I mean, this is it. This is the Church of Jesus. Jesus and the church are one and the same to me, not separate. The church leads me to Jesus, and Jesus leads me back to his church.
Sister Berzosa says the church must search for creative ways to address the challenges of our time. But above all, the church must listen and give a voice to all people.
I offer spiritual guidance, give spiritual exercises. I listen to people and accompany them in formation. I'm an educator, even if this is not a school. In our groups, I emphasize how ours must be a synodal and participatory church.
As a member of the permanent body that prepares and organizes the Synod's General Assemblies, Sister Berzosa will be involved in the next one, which is scheduled for 2022 and is set to address the topic of synodality within the church. It's been 10 years since the start of Syria's civil war. 60% of the entire population is at risk of hunger, and half of their children have not seen a day without war. Hundreds of thousands of people have died, millions have become internally displaced, and millions more have fled the country. But despite the violence, some Christian communities are actually seeing growth. Also marking its 10th anniversary, the disaster at the Fukushima power plant. A memorial service was held for the 20,000 victims. A magnitude 9.0 earthquake created a tsunami that hit the plant. Japan's Catholic bishops have marked the anniversary by praying for the dead and promising to rebuild, saying, quote, The Catholic Church in Japan is not limited to material support, but will continue to walk in the bonds of solidarity with the people of Tohoku as friends, brothers, and sisters, a solidarity that spreads around the world to raise our horizon and our hope. There's a lot more news headed your way. Catholic leaders in Hungary are very excited for the Pope's trip later this year. Why they call it a source of hope in a dark year.
I owe it to this family to do something with this material.
A college professor is keeping a Holocaust survivor's story alive. And we talk with the priest that's hitting it out of the park for Catholic school students with his baseball card collection.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
A professor at a Catholic college is working hard to preserve the history of the Holocaust. Currents News' Emily Drewby reports from Manhattan College on a very special exhibit.
And these are the two brothers.
Snapshots of Herman ZIERING's life, from his bar mitzvah to moments with his wife, Lay.
This is their wedding.
Preserved on this wall, a husband, a father, and a Holocaust survivor.
He was in the Riga ghetto.
Lay and her mom escaped to the U.S. by posing as Christians. After Herman escaped too, he became a Nazi hunter, traveling from Long Island to South America. Herman and Lay's incredible lives laid out at Manhattan College.
The exhibit, born from boxes, brought to Mehnaz Afridi, director of the center and associate professor of religion at the college. They came from Herman's daughter, Debbie ZIERING.
You never say no to boxes, right? You don't know what you can find.
She found an extensive Holocaust library, moments collected throughout Herman and Lay's life.
I owe it to this family to do something with this material.
So she set up a space to display it. A book. For every Holocaust death, the word Jew printed in it, illustrating the extreme loss of life. The yellow star Herman was forced to wear to identify himself as Jewish. Pieces carefully picked out to make people stop, think, and feel. Debbie amazed by what those boxes have become.
Having other people acknowledge what my parents went through and seeing that they contributed so much in such a short amount of time, I was so proud of them. I miss them so much.
The exhibit is also about fighting against hate and promoting discussion and collaboration among all faiths. Mehnaz is Muslim, Manhattan College is Catholic, and the exhibit explores persecution against Jewish people.
I believe that education about the Holocaust is about understanding what racism can do. It doesn't matter if you're Jewish or Black or Muslim or any kind of minority, but if you build up this mythology about people and you make them a scapegoat, it leads to murder and genocide.
Interfaith dialogue, a cornerstone of Pope Francis's historic trip to Iraq, where he heavily focused on tolerance, inclusiveness, and human fraternity.
Recently, the center was given a grant to digitize everything so that people all over can learn from Lay and Herman's stories and wisdom. In Riverdale, Emily Drewby, Currents News.
Catholic leaders in Hungary are looking forward to the Pope's visit.
We welcomed the news with great joy. The Pope's presence at the final Mass of the Eucharistic Congress, the Statio Orbis, could be a great source of encouragement, hope, and reawakening after these months darkened by the pandemic.
Pope Francis will celebrate the final Mass of the Eucharistic Congress in Budapest. The event was scheduled for last year but was postponed due to the pandemic. The Mass takes place in September. A priest in Minnesota is giving back in a grand slam kind of way during this Lenten season. He's auctioning off his baseball cards for Catholic school scholarships. Father John UBEL, rector at the Cathedral of St. Paul in St. Paul, Minnesota, joins us now. So Father John, I hear you have quite the collection. Tell me first, how much do you think your cards are worth?
They were appraised at about $31,000, Christine, and I had no idea they were worth that much until about a month ago.
Wow, that is amazing. So tell us, which one is your favorite and why? And you could show it to us if you can.
Okay, well, my favorite is by far not the most valuable, but I love the Nolan Ryan card.
Okay.
And the 1970 set is just such a beautiful set. They're beautifully framed. Here was the man who had the most strikeouts ever by far. And you can turn around in the back and look at all the statistics. And I just love this set. And it's the year I started collecting baseball cards.
Okay. I also hear you have a Jackie Robinson.
I do. Now that one is already at the auction house. So this is just a photograph of it.
Okay.
But this is by far the most valuable card. And his whole story is amazing to me. I saw the film 42. I'm sure many people did. My mother's originally from the New York City area, but his whole story is so inspiring, his character and how he overcame such adversity.
Absolutely. And now I hear you almost threw out these baseball cards. What happened and how did the idea of auctioning them off come about?
Well, I kept them in a Girl Scout cookie box like a lot of kids my age. The Jackie Robinson and the Hank Aaron I did purchase as adults, so those did not get thrown away. But I literally, when I was switching assignments from one to another, I had them at the dumpster in 2003, and at the last second, I said, just put them in the back of the car, just keep them. And then my love of baseball continued, and I got more interested in it and started buying a few cards as an adult. And then as far as how this came about, people were talking about how well the Catholic schools are doing, Christine. During the middle of the pandemic, in-person education, and someone used the phrase, they're hitting it out of the park. And that person was Gene Houghton from the Aim Higher Foundation. And then on January 22nd, we had a prayer service for life at the cathedral. I came back, and there was a text message from my brother saying Hank Aaron had just died. He was one of my boyhood heroes as well. I watched him beat Babe Ruth's record as a 10-year-old. And I started putting two and two together, and the passage from Tobit about prayer and fasting are good, but better is almsgiving. And I thought, it's time. I'm not looking at these very often. They could be put to use for something else.
So I know you started collecting all of these cards as a child. It must bring back a lot of memories. So is it hard for you to part with them? I know my husband has a collection. I don't know if he would part with them.
It actually, it is. It is very hard, but this has been so fun. I've never had so much fun in almsgiving in my life. And so to me, it's worth it many, many times over. I'm having the time of my life. But yes, from a human perspective, from the perspective of nostalgia, it is difficult.
All right, so tell us, when is the auction and how can people sign up to help out?
The auction begins Friday at noon Central Time and goes until 8:00 p.m. Central on Sunday evening. So it's a weekend auction, and they may simply visit aimhigherfoundation.org, and everything is right there for them to sign up. And we'd love to have some people from the Brooklyn area join us for the auction.
Well, you have that Jackie Robinson card, so maybe you will. Father John UBEL, rector of the Cathedral of St. Paul in St. Paul, Minnesota, thanks for joining us. Good luck with the auction.
Thank you so much for having me, Christine. God bless.
And if you'd like to step up to the plate for your chance at hitting a home run at the auction, head on over to aimhigherfoundation.org/baseball-auction. The auction runs the 12th to the 14th. The Feast of St. Joseph is next week. Coming up, Bishop DiMarzio will be here to discuss what the feast means and how to mark it. And the CDC says you can hug your elderly loved ones, but there are some restrictions in place. What you need to know after the break. Next week marks the feast day for a very important member of the Holy Family, St. Joseph. The saint has been called a role model for modern-day fathers. Here to talk more about that is Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio, who sits down with former Tablet editor Ed Wilkinson for this week's Into the Deep. Ed.
Thank you. We're going to speak with Bishop DiMarzio today about St. Joseph. This is the time of year, Bishop, that we celebrate the Feast of St. Joseph. But the Pope has said that this whole year should be dedicated to St. Joseph. Why did the Holy Father pick out Joseph and single him out for this?
I don't really know the Pope's mind, but he's very much devoted to St. Joseph. Remember, as soon as he became Pope, he inserted the petition of St. Joseph in all of the Eucharistic prayers. And he has this image of Joseph sleeping, the sleeping Joseph. Actually, there's one I have on the shelf here, I could show it to you, where Joseph is dreaming, and that's how he gets all the messages. And so he's got a great devotion to St. Joseph. He wrote a very beautiful encyclical letter, the declaring the feast. Here I have a copy here, and it's really it's an apostolic letter. It's called With the Father's Heart. And he really has an insight into Joseph as father, and also how earthly fathers reflect God, who is Father, as Joseph reflected Jesus, the Heavenly Father. And also priesthood is so important, because priests are fathers. And if you just insert that idea when you read that encyclical, and I've asked the priests to read it with that idea in mind, you get a good insight.
So we know so little about St. Joseph, really. He's only mentioned a couple of times in the Gospels, and is always in the early life of Jesus. What do we really know about who he was?
He was the foster father of Jesus. He took Mary as his wife, even though she was pregnant at the time. And the dream again let him understand that this was God's will, God's way. So he was a trusting man, obviously, a man who was able to put his own ideas aside, because he had that inspiration from God to do something else.
You referred, in the column in the tablet, you referred to him as an accepting father. What did you mean by that phrase?
He accepted things he didn't understand. He didn't know why I had to leave and go to Egypt, why he had to be the foster father and not his own real father. These are the things he accepted.
Yeah.
He didn't demand of God. He accepted what was given to him.
Yeah. You also referred to him as a father in the shadows. It's an interesting phrase.
Because the Holy Father used that. He said there was a novel written by a Polish author about calling St. Joseph the father in the shadow, because he was the shadow of the Heavenly Father. And then the application the Holy Father makes is that every father is really a reflection of the Heavenly Father. That's what we need today.
Yeah. Well, a good role model for fathers and for priests, as you say. Bishop, thanks so much for being with us today.
You're welcome.
And now we're going back to the news desk.
Thank you, Ed and Bishop DiMarzio. And finally tonight, we leave you with some images of hope for something we have all been waiting for, being able to hug our loved ones. According to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, nursing home residents who have been vaccinated can hug their loved ones, as long as you take precautions such as wearing a mask and using hand sanitizer. They also underscore that you should still maintain social distancing and keep all visits outdoors, but it's definitely a good and long-awaited step. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.